On the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, when I was 12 years old, Grandfather suddenly came down with a strange illness. He passed away that very night. After we buried Grandfather, two events occurred that shook the entire village. It all started on the night of Grandfather's burial. That night, the rain was pouring down heavily. A little mute boy in the village named Ergu rushed to the front of my house and knocked on the door incessantly. Seeing that no one opened the door, he even started banging his head against it. When I opened the door, I was startled and quickly let him into the house. Seeing how anxious he looked, I spoke up and said, "Are you afraid of the thunder in the middle of the night? If so, you can sleep at my place tonight." Just as I turned around, he suddenly grabbed my hand. Two words squeezed out of his mouth with great difficulty: "Grave." Instantly terrified, I quickly shook off his hand. Because there is an old saying in the countryside, if a mute person suddenly speaks, and they aren't faking it, then they must be possessed by a ghost. Thinking of this, I took several steps back and shouted out loud, "Where did this lonely soul or wild ghost come from? Get the hell out of the mute's body right now!" At this, the mute boy was also stunned for a moment, then stammered, "Grave. Grandfather's grave has been dug up." The little mute's words struck me like a bolt of lightning. Without thinking twice, I rushed out the door and headed straight for Grandfather's grave. By the time I reached Grandfather's grave, the heavy rain had already stopped. However, I shuddered in shock at the sight before my eyes. Grandfather's grave had indeed been dug open. The coffin lid had been pried off, and the coffin was completely filled with rainwater. Grandfather's corpse was soaking in the water like that, and dark red blood was flowing from his face. I was instantly shocked. It looked as though Grandfather had been struck by an evil curse. Trembling, I walked up to the coffin and reached my hand inside. Soon, I felt something hard. Pulling it out to look, it turned out to be a pair of scissors. Instantly, my expression became extremely grave. Because scissors have two blades, as the saying goes, they can sever yin and yang. In burial feng shui, they are considered objects of extreme malevolent energy used to suppress. Therefore, placing scissors in a coffin will draw down the family extinguishing lightning. Thinking of this, I could not help but curse out loud. Who on earth did such a thing? I will definitely find you and drag you out. Grandfather's grave had been dug up, and inside the coffin, I felt a pair of red scissors. At this moment, I suddenly recalled that in burial feng shui, there is a sinister practice, which is to place 4 pairs of scissors in the 4 corners of the coffin. This way, the person in the coffin would have their lineage completely cut off. And this practice is called the Heavenly Lightning Family Extinguishing Curse. Thinking up to this point, I hurriedly fumbled around inside the coffin. Finally, I pulled out 3 more identical pairs of scissors. However, the next second, I realized that my hand had been cut at some unknown point. Blood had already stained the scissors, and a burst of malevolent energy followed the wound on my hand, entering into my body. A piercing pain made me scream out loud, and then I fainted. By the time I woke up again, it was already daylight. At this time, I noticed the bloodstains on Grandfather's face had disappeared, and his expression looked much more normal than before. This should mean the Heavenly Lightning Family Extinguishing Curse had lost its effect. With great effort, I hauled Grandfather's body out of the accumulated water and found another piece of cloth to cover his face. Just then, I suddenly noticed a few slender cigarette butts on the dirt pile nearby. This kind of cigarette could not be bought in town. It seemed like something my youngest uncle brought back from Guangdong. Could the person who dug up Grandfather's grave be my youngest uncle? Grandfather only had 2 sons. After my dad passed away in the early years, my youngest uncle and grandfather had a falling out, and I became the sole descendant of the family. Thinking of this, I shook my head. No matter how much my youngest uncle hated Grandfather, he probably would not go as far as using the Heavenly Lightning Family Extinguishing Curse to scheme against himself as well. The top priority now is to find the village chief to help relocate Grandfather's grave. At this moment, I got up and rushed towards the village chief's house. By the time I arrived at the village chief's house, more than 10 dogs were following behind me. Bazwa, a dog that used to be very familiar with me, was now barking wildly without stopping. Hearing the noise, the village chief walked over and asked, "Kid, what's wrong with you?" Choking up, I spoke. "Grandpa Village Chief, my grandfather's grave has been dug up." The village chief's body shook, and then he said loudly, "What? Which goddamn person dares to dig up 5th Master Chin's grave?" I shook my head and said, "It's still not clear right now, but we must finish relocating the grave before 12 o'clock noon. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome." Then I thought of something else, and continued to say, "Grandpa Village Chief, today is the 16th day of the 7th lunar month. People born in the year of the dragon and the year of the snake should not relocate graves. Call upon those born in the year of the pig and the year of the tiger, and take some slaked lime to the grave first. I will go call my youngest uncle and come right over." The village chief nodded. Then I rushed towards my youngest uncle's house. Meanwhile, the sun had also risen, and time was already running out. My grandfather's grave had been dug up, and the cigarette butts on the ground made me suspect that my youngest uncle did this. Right now, I am rushing to my youngest uncle's house. Upon arriving at my youngest uncle's house, I found him leisurely smoking a cigarette. I directly took the cigarette butt found at the grave and threw it in front of him. At this moment, my youngest uncle's face turned serious and he spoke. "Ba, what do you mean by this?" Looking at my youngest uncle's face, I said, "Grandfather's grave has been dug up. I need you to go relocate grandfather's grave. If you don't go, I will hand this cigarette butt over to the village chief." After saying this, I saw my youngest uncle's face turn even more unsightly. Without waiting for him to reply, I turned around and walked out. Along the way, I ran back home quickly. From the Taoist altar my grandfather used when he was alive, I grabbed the peachwood sword, glutinous rice, and other things, just in case. As soon as I walked out the door, I bumped into the village chief and the others. The village chief pointed at the people beside him and said, "Kid, I found the people for you. This is Dazhuang, born in the year of the pig. This is Huzi, born in the year of the tiger." Then he looked at me, sighed, and said, "Your uncle wouldn't be unwilling to come, right?" As soon as he finished speaking, I saw my uncle wearing a tank top, walking over with a cigarette in his mouth. I shook my head and said goodbye to the village chief, then led the three of them toward grandfather's grave. Just as we reached the grave, I noticed a black cat sitting upright on top of grandfather's corpse. A black cat stepping on a corpse is not a good omen. I quickly kicked the black cat away. The moment I uncovered the white cloth on grandfather's face, I saw that grandfather's face had already turned charcoal black, his eyes blood red, and two fangs had even grown in his mouth. The few of us were startled and shuddered at this sight. Then, biting the bullet, I called the others, and we painstakingly lifted the coffin out. Then I sprinkled slaked lime inside the coffin. After doing all this, I asked my uncle to put grandfather's corpse back into the coffin. After closing the coffin lid, the four of us carried the coffin, found another piece of land nearby, and buried grandfather again. After finishing all of this, my uncle said impatiently, "Are you done yet? Can we leave now that it's done?" At this moment, I said to them, "Brother Huzi, Brother Dazhuang, thank you for your hard work today. You should head back with my uncle. Tonight, I need to stay behind to watch over grandfather's grave." After watching them leave, I quickly took out the glutinous rice and sprinkled it on the coffin, hoping it could suppress grandfather's corpse transformation. I muttered to myself. Before I knew it, it grew dark. Just as I was so tired that I was about to fall asleep, a piercing sound from the coffin beside me echoed out. Just as I was keeping watch over grandfather's spirit all by myself, a sharp noise suddenly came from inside the coffin. I grabbed the peachwood sword in fear, staring intently at the coffin. Just as I was in shock, with a loud bang, the coffin lid was suddenly sent flying. The next moment, grandfather's body slowly sat up. "Grandfather," I choked up and called out softly. At this moment, grandfather suddenly turned his head and locked his eyes on me. I understood that the current grandfather had already completed his corpse transformation. I recalled grandfather telling me before he passed away that the best way for humans to deal with a Zhangshi is to burn it with fire. However, just as I was preparing to get up, grandfather suddenly stood up and then hopped away, disappearing into the distance. I hurriedly gave chase in the direction where grandfather had disappeared. A long time later, grandfather stopped in front of a cave and then vanished before my eyes again. Gritting my teeth, I followed him into the cave. As soon as I entered, I felt a gust of chilly wind blowing right at my face and could not help but shudder. However, at this moment, I discovered that the entire cave was extremely cold and yin in nature, with its overall shape resembling a dog's head. Moreover, the dog's mouth faced due east, masterfully capturing the light of the sun and the moon and absorbing the essence of heaven and earth. It was a typical example of one of the four great corpse-rearing lands. At this point, I understood grandfather's purpose for coming here. Subsequently, I walked deeper into the cave. Before I knew it, I arrived at a very large stone chamber. The entire stone chamber held only a single deep red coffin, and a large amount of yin energy was swirling around the coffin. Holding my breath, I slowly walked over to the side of the coffin. However, the next moment, I froze right where I stood.
The person in the coffin was not Grandpa, but a 17 or 18-year-old, beautiful girl wearing a white dress. I tried calling out a few times, but the girl seemed as if she were fast asleep, without any response. Just as I reached out and touched her, a piercing chill rushed straight into my body. At that moment, I instantly realized that this girl was the corpse in this Guneok lair. If she woke up, she would be a super terrifying existence. Suddenly, an idea popped into my mind: burn her. Just as I was about to act, a sudden, massive force knocked me flying backwards. I looked up and saw the person who hit me. It was Grandpa, missing so long. Grandpa, now a zombie, hopped towards me. I looked at Grandpa's hands. Blood-red fingernails had grown out. Just when I thought everything was over, a beam of white light instantly enveloped Grandpa. Seizing the opportunity, I endured the pain and stood up. With tears, I thrust the peachwood sword into Grandpa's chest. Instantly, Grandpa's body shook violently, and then he collapsed heavily onto the spot. Looking at Grandpa, I sighed softly. But the next moment, a crisp laughter came from behind me. I turned my head and saw the female corpse, without me realizing when, was now standing behind me. As I raised the peachwood sword, ready to fight for my life, the heavenly thunder aura inside me suddenly erupted, and my consciousness gradually blurred. I lost track of time, when a sharp pain woke me up. At this moment, I actually felt cold all over. Closely, that female corpse was lying on top of me, sucking my blood. Instantly, I let out a terrified scream. The female corpse seemed to notice my distress. She stood up, tilted her head, and smirked at me. The situation before me left me a bit dazed. The female corpse did not seem very bright. I could not care less about that. Just as I planned, to move Grandpa's body out. The female corpse grabbed me, and then pointed her finger at the coffin nearby. Curiously, I walked to the coffin. I noticed a line of words carved on the coffin lid. My name is by Ruohan, sealed here by Qin Yang. Knowing my days are numbered and I am fading, I hereby make a vow. Whoever kills Qin Yang for me, my corpse will serve him as master for life, never to betray him. Qin Yang was my grandfather's name, so this female corpse was sealed here by Grandpa. I just stabbed Grandpa with a peachwood sword, and the female corpse thought I avenged her. That is why she drank my blood and formed a contract with me. But why did Grandpa kill her? And seal her here? Just then, I saw an ancient book to the side. It was the Qin family Feng Shui secrets book Grandpa had. At this moment, many questions popped into my head. Grandpa's corpse led me to the cave. The female corpse accepted me, and I got the secrets. Everything seemed as if it had been arranged in advance. But who is manipulating things behind the scenes? Right now, I did not care that much. I picked up Grandpa's corpse and went back to the graveyard. After burying Grandpa, I took by Ruohan and walked down the mountain. In a cave, I discovered a sealed female corpse. By a stroke of fate, the female corpse followed me back to the village. But as I arrived at my home entrance, I found the village chief leading some villagers, completely surrounding my house. I walked forward in confusion and asked, "Grandpa Village Chief, what are you all doing?" The village chief spoke to me with a serious face. "Xiaofei, your uncle said, you got the lineage curse moving the grave. You dare come back to the village? Do you want us to lack descendants?" Hearing this, I understood. This must be orchestrated by my uncle behind the scenes. But I do not understand what his true intentions are. Seeing I did not reply, the village chief spoke in a slightly softened tone. "Xiaofei, now everyone can only ask you to leave the village." I looked at the village chief, sighed softly, and said, "Grandpa Village Chief, this baleful aura will only affect me. It won't harm anyone else." Before I could finish, a villager nearby interrupted me and said, "Bullshit. Your words don't make it harmless. If I can't have a son, will you take responsibility?" He raised the hoe in his hand and was about to strike me. But the next moment, he flew backward through the air, only to see Bai Ruohan staring at everyone with a serious expression. I quickly raised my hand to signal her to stop, and said helplessly to the chief, "You all really misunderstood me. If everyone really doesn't believe me, then I will just leave." I took Bai Ruohan and walked out of the village. On the way, I never saw the little mute's figure again. With nowhere else to go right now, I had to return to where my grandfather was buried. We found an abandoned shack and settled down. At this time, my mind was full of various doubts. I vowed in my heart that I must investigate this thoroughly. So, I took out that book of Qin family Feng Shui secret arts. This book contained Feng Shui, fortune-telling, talismans, energy and martial arts. Soon after, I immersed myself in studying. 5 years passed imperceptibly. I had thoroughly mastered all contents of this book. And at this time, Bai Ruohan surprisingly managed to speak some simple words. Just then, she suddenly spoke with a serious expression. "Someone's outside." Then, I walked toward the door. The next second, I was stunned in place by shock. A person stood in front of me. A filthy middle-aged man covered in dirt. It turned out to be my uncle, unseen for years. My uncle, unseen for 5 years, suddenly appeared. Seeing me dazed, my uncle spoke first. "Why is a kid like you hiding in this awful place? It took a lot of effort to find you." He turned his head and saw Bai Ruohan behind me. Instantly, a strange expression appeared on his face. I stared at my uncle with a serious expression, gathering palm lightning, and asked in a deep voice, "You harmed me so I cannot return home. What are you coming to find me for now?" My uncle waved his hand and said softly, "Don't misunderstand, I am your real uncle. This time I just came to see you." Then my uncle paused and continued, "I know you have prejudices against me. In the past, your uncle was a bit of a bastard, but now that I am older, I realize family is most important." Saying this, my uncle suddenly grabbed my hand and said excitedly, "Your uncle has always treated you like his own child. Can't you forgive me?" Hearing my uncle's words, I felt a slight warmth in my heart. Then I spoke up, "Uncle, I don't blame you. I think Grandpa won't blame you either. Let's go inside and talk." We went into the house together. Sitting down, my uncle took out a bottle of wine and said, "Let's put aside past grudges, uncle and nephew, and drink. Tomorrow, your uncle will take you to the city to succeed." Afterwards, my uncle and I didn't know how many cups we drank. Gradually, I became unconscious. When I woke up again, my uncle disappeared without a trace. Even Bai Ruohan, who had been staying by my side, had also vanished. Just then, I found a note left on the table. My whole body trembled instantly. The note read, "You brat. Your little girlfriend is not bad. Consider it as showing respect to your uncle." I finally realized my uncle had been deceiving me. His target turned out to be Bai Ruohan. At this moment, I walked out the door like crazy. Walking for days and nights, I found my uncle's house. I knocked on the door anxiously. A few minutes later, a woman opened the door. At this time, I spoke up. "I am looking for my uncle." "You must be my aunt?" Hearing that I sought my uncle, the expression of the woman in front of me instantly became serious. She spoke coldly. "Come on in." Then I walked inside. However, the next second, the woman cursed and said, "Are you brat intentionally trying to irritate me? Your uncle has been dead for 2 years. If you want him, look for him below." These words left me completely dazed, and in the next moment, I froze right where I stood. I saw a spirit tablet placed on the table. The tablet read, "Spirit Tablet of Qin Yi." My uncle, who asked me for a drink, had passed away 2 years ago. Looking at my uncle's spirit tablet, my aunt told me, "Your uncle died on the spot in a car accident 2 years ago." I walked out of my uncle's house in a daze. Grandfather's grave was dug open, and Bai Ruohan's essence was taken. All of this must be tied to my uncle. My uncle's death is definitely not that simple. Just as I was lost in thought, a deep voice spoke up and asked, "You are 5th Master Qin's grandson? Master requests your presence." Following the person in surprise, I arrived inside a villa. At this moment, a middle-aged man in his 30s spoke up. "5th Master Qin's grandson. A fine young man. I just didn't expect you to be so young." I asked in confusion. "You knew my grandfather? Why did you look for me?" The man explained. "My name is Dong Zhiqing. 10 years ago, my daughter caught a strange illness. Your grandfather, 5th Master Qin, helped us once. Recently, I heard 5th Master Qin passed away, and Yuya's illness has flared up again. I invited you here, little brother, to take a look." Hearing this, I said, "Since my grandfather didn't finish it, it's my responsibility to help. Take me to see Miss Dong." Dong Zhiqing then led me into a bedroom. I saw a girl lying on the bed in front of me. Her hands and feet were tied up, and her body kept twisting uncontrollably. Most importantly, her eyes. Only the whites of her eyes were showing. She was clearly possessed by something unclean. At this moment, I took a deep breath, formed the gesture, the Yin Thunder finger from the family secret arts. Just as I was about to strike Dong Yuya with it, her body suddenly stopped moving. Then she looked at me, revealing a creepy smile. She spoke up, saying, "Don't mind others' business, lest you harm yourself." I snorted coldly, then raised my hand and formed another, Yang Thunder. Lifting both hands, I combined yin and yang. Fire and a terrifying energy was ready. At this moment, Dong Yuya roared loudly. "Do you really want to oppose me? You're courting death." I snorted coldly and said, "I want to see what you're capable of." Now, the combined thunder finger struck Dong Yuya's chest heavily. A painful wail echoed, and Dong Yuya's body began to tremble. After a moment, her complexion returned to normal. But at that moment, in her belly, a baby-like figure suddenly condensed and screeched at me. "Fine, fine, fine, just you wait." Then it completely vanished. A ghost baby had condensed inside the girl's belly, and then vanished. Dong Zhiqing, standing aside, asked nervously, "Young Master Qin, is my daughter all right now?" I took out an amulet and placed it beside Dong Yuya, saying, "She is fine, but you heard what she said just now, too. She told me to wait, which means she will definitely come back." Hearing my words, Dong Zhiqing said excitedly, "Brother Qin, you must help me. Could you please stay at my house for the next few days?" I nodded and agreed. Then, Dong Zhiqing took me to a guest room and said, "You worked hard today, brother. Have a good night's rest." Then, I spoke up, "No trouble, but it's my first time taking action like this, so I'm just a bit exhausted." Then, I took out the Wangzai milk I had with me and started drinking it. Dong Zhiqing smiled and said, "So you like this, brother? Tomorrow, I'll have the butler buy a few boxes of it." I waved my hand and said, "No need to trouble." Dong Zhiqing smiled and left the room. However, just as I was preparing to sleep, suddenly, a chilling sound of a child's laughter came from behind me. I turned around and saw a little girl wearing a red belly band. A dense aura of resentment emanated from her body, and a pair of blood-red eyes stared intently at me. I shuddered in fear. Forming a young thunder finger, I said grimly, You actually dare to show yourself. It seems that beating didn't hurt enough. The baby girl didn't seem afraid. Instead, she threatened me, saying, "Kid, stop poking into others' business. Leave the Dong family now, and I can spare your life." I sneered and said, "I am meddling in this matter. Bring on whatever you've got." Just at this tense, critical moment, footsteps suddenly approached. I saw Dong Yuya walk in, and seeing the baby girl in front, she was terrified, trembling uncontrollably. Then, the baby girl looked at Dong Yuya, laughing eerily, and vanished. At this moment, I looked at Dong Yuya suspiciously and asked, "Miss Dong, have you had an abortion?" A ghost infant gave Dong Yuya and me a fright. The ghost infant vanished. I looked at Dong Yuya and asked, "Miss Dong, have you had an abortion?" Dong Yuya shook her head with a serious expression. I said in confusion, "A ghost infant is a child aborted before birth. They only hold resentment toward the mother who killed them. Yet you say you never aborted. And this ghost infant has a strong purpose. It's manipulated behind the scenes." Hearing this, Dong Yuya fell into deep thought, seemingly wondering who exactly wanted to harm her. At this time, I smiled and said, "No need to think so much. Once we catch that infant, I will naturally have a way to find the person behind it." Then, I reached out and gestured in the air. Then, a purple talisman manifested, and then vanished into Dong Yuya's body. Dong Yuya exclaimed, "What? What did you do?" I said deeply, "It's the Five Thunders talisman. It can protect you at a critical moment." Just as my voice fell, a clap of thunder suddenly rang out, followed immediately by the sound of rain outside. My face darkened, and I said to Dong Yuya, "Not good. Follow me outside quickly." Then we came to an open space. Through the mist, we saw that ghost infant floating in the air, seemingly absorbing the yin energy around it. I struck with a yang thunder finger, but it was blocked by the ghost infant. Next moment, the surrounding mist was rapidly absorbed into her body. And at this time, the rain also stopped. The ghost infant revealed herself, and the yin energy on her body became even denser. She looked at us and gave an eerie laugh, then appeared in front of me with a flash, saying, "Kid, today I will send you to see the Buddha." Before she finished, I struck with a combined thunder finger, but the ghost infant easily dodged it. My face darkened. I thought, this is bad. I can't defeat it without an ultimate move. Then, I recited the incantation. Laozi divides the three pure ones. Vairocana Buddha stabilizes souls, heaven, earth. With a loud slap, the ghost infant smacked me down. The ghost infant even mocked me. So chatty. Then, she looked at Dong Yuya nearby, and floated toward her with a fierce look. Absorbing the surrounding yin energy, the infant grew powerful. She smacked me to the ground with one slap, and then slowly floated toward Dong Yuya. Seeing this scene, I hurriedly stood up. Then, I remembered that earlier, I placed a Five Thunders bodyguarding amulet inside Dong Yuya, so I smiled and took a few steps back. Sure enough, the instant the ghost infant touched Dong Yuya, an electric current erupted from her body. Several bolts of purple lightning slammed violently into the ghost infant. The ghost infant was blasted flying backward. The yin energy on her body was dispersed, and her soul body became transparent. I said in a deep voice, "You little ghost, why don't you obediently surrender? Aren't you afraid your soul will perish?" Then, Dong Zhiqing, hearing the commotion, walked over. The ghost infant gave a sinister laugh, and instantly flew into Dong Zhiqing's body. I was completely shocked, thinking, this is bad. Then, with a ferocious expression, Dong Zhiqing tackled me down. He then choked my neck and roared, "Die for me." I was choked so hard I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't muster any strength. As I was driven to despair, Dong Yuya threw a stone, hitting Dong Zhiqing's head. Seizing the opportunity, I bit the tip of my tongue and spat essence blood onto Dong Zhiqing's forehead. Instantly, black smoke began to rise from his forehead. Dong Zhiqing held his head, wailing continuously. At this time, I stood up and blasted him with a combined thunder finger. Next, the ghost infant's body was forced out by me. She gave me a vicious glare, and then flew away into the distance. At that moment, I looked at Dong Yuya and said, "Take care of your father." Then, I chased where the ghost infant had disappeared. Soon, following the ghost infant, I arrived in front of a cave. After the ghost infant flew into the cave, a voice came from inside, a voice I was familiar with and deeply resented. "You failed. What's the use of keeping you?" Angrily, I walked into the cave. Next, I unexpectedly really saw my uncle. Furthermore, several coffins were arranged right beside him. Seeing my arrival, my uncle spoke with a completely calm face. "Kid, you finally came." At this point, I angrily spoke up. "All of this, as expected, is your doing. Where did you take Bai Ruohan? Why did you dig up grandfather's grave?" My uncle snorted coldly and said, "Dig grandfather's grave? I could never do that." I found my uncle in the cave, but he claimed grandfather's grave wasn't dug by him. Seeing my shocked face, my uncle continued, 8 years ago, grandfather battled Corpse King. Although he defeated the Corpse King, he ended up with a chronic ailment himself. In order to cure himself, he refined Bai Ruohan into an extremely yin-cold Corpse Maiden, to make the Corpse Maiden awaken as soon as possible. He actually set his sights on you. At that moment, I looked at my uncle in shock. After a while, I finally asked, "Hasn't grandfather passed away? How could he possibly harm me?" My uncle snorted coldly and said, "Don't think too highly of your grandfather. Back then, to recover, he used me for his experiments, which ultimately caused me to break ties with him. Only after that did the old man set his sights on you. He faked his death, and then dug up his own grave, all to lure you to the cave where Bai Ruohan was hidden. But what he didn't expect was Bai Ruohan recognizing you as master. And in the end, even he himself died by your hands." Hearing this, I froze on the spot. Then, crying, I said, "I killed my grandpa." My uncle said, "Don't blame yourself. Your grandpa didn't have many days left anyway, but you actually did me a huge favor." I snapped back to my senses. My uncle did many bad things behind the scenes. I stared at him. In a deep voice, I asked, "What are you plotting now? Why is the ghost baby from Dong Yuya's house here?" My uncle laughed. "What's the rush, dear nephew? Let your uncle explain it slowly. After you stabbed your grandpa that day, I absorbed your grandpa's cultivation power. Later, I found out about this. But what surprised me, your grandpa didn't just do this to cure it. He wanted 1,000 years of power to rule 3 realms. A pity he didn't make it. Now, this task has been passed on to me. Your lover Dong Yuya has ultimate yin constitution. Now you understand why I arranged the ghost baby, right?" Angrily, I looked at my uncle and said, "I don't care about your plans. Hand over Bai Ruohan, and stop pestering Dong Yuya in the future. Then I might let you off." Instead, my uncle laughed aloud. He spoke eerily, "Just because you've learned a bit of Qin family's secret feng shui, you dare talk of letting me off? Since you are my nephew, I won't trouble you. Bai Ruohan is right before you. Go and get her yourself." The exact moment my uncle's words fell, with a bang, the coffin lids beside him all blasted open. Inside the coffins lay several young girls, and Bai Ruohan was among them. My uncle said deeply, "Yin and yang cannot be lacking. Your arrival is just in time to help your uncle." Before I could speak, he struck out a palm strike. A Bagua talisman appeared in midair, absorbing the power of corpses in the coffins. Next, a surge of energy burst out from my body. Endless energy finally all poured into my uncle's body. Following that, his entire body exuded a dense aura. His eyes also turned crimson. Finally, he vanished from the spot. And at this moment, I stopped breathing and fell heavily to the ground.